Right, we're ready for the last one. Good evening. Welcome to the 12th podcast live for our season review. Unfortunately, you got me, Steve Jackson. I'm your host for the evening. John Donovan sends his apologies for missing tonight. He's getting some business up for the summer. Now his knee's getting better. He can do a bit more dancing in Benidorm. So get in touch if you want to book him. We have got Mr. Jamie Dalgana with us. Evening, Deli.
We're doing all right.
Yeah, we're doing good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, marvellous. Week without football. Unreal.
I know the feeling, mate. Yeah, I haven't talked about football. People keep asking me about football work, and I'm just like, move on. I'd rather talk about work. So that says it all for me. And also, we got Mr. Jacob Jervis. Evening, Jacob.
Evening, you all right?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good. Actually enjoying no football.
Oh, good. You applied for the Boro job yet?
Not yet. There's no advert yet, sadly.
Like he'd play it out in the Evening Gazette. We need a manager. Oh, well, you never know. He'll come one day. He'll come. So, yes, we're going to talk about the season as a whole. We'll go through what our expectations were, start of the season, talk about, was the squad effectively good enough? Lots of yes and no's on either side. We'll go through what people are saying about it. And we'll just go through not only our disappointments, we'll go through our highs as well. We've had some good moments. I know me and Dally have had some right laughs on that bus this season, so we'll go through them. They say we'll get you all involved. Get in touch, get your thoughts in. They say our supreme leader, Mr. John Donovan, did put some questions out, so he has had some responses. So we'll get through them as well. But before we start, as always, are we both all right?
Yeah,
I sound
good. So. Obviously, we've had a bit of time to reflect, to digest, to go through everything. But I mean, we'll start from the beginning, Dally. Obviously, we started, at home to Swansea. Was it? Yeah. Last year, scored probably one of the best turns I've seen since Hal Robson-Carney against Belgium back in 2016. I mean, I won't ask you what you felt before the game, but walking out the ground that day, did you just feel that something was about to happen? You just felt it was a little bit different this season? Because I did. I thought, you know what? We've got something here if we get a couple more in.
I don't know. I think I felt a bit drunk. Might have had a few things. If I'm honest, no. I think we kept like lads, and the vein of form he was in before. At the end of the season previous, I was away at Cardiff. And you're looking at, you keep hold of him, you've got every chance. He scores that goal, absolutely outrageous turn, and you think, yeah, there you go, we're off and running. It's a long season, but you've got a striker like that, you've always got a chance.
Well, that's it, isn't it? I mean, that's when the whispers kind of started, because we knew what kind of striker we had. But what did you feel, Jacob, when the season started? Obviously, we brought some players in. Let's say we brought in Tommy Conway for a start. Let's say Delano Bergdahl came in. Obviously, Luke Hayden was made permanent. Aidan Morris came in. We'll talk about how they've affected the squads in good or bad ways, plus our January transfers as well. But how did you feel after that first game? You see, obviously, we did a bit of pre-season as well, but how did you feel once 3 points were on the board?
Yeah, obviously it is difficult to take yourself right back to the beginning, but as Daddy said, it at the beginning of that season, in my head, I was thinking we've got goals in the team. We're definitely going to have a good goal tally. It's just whether we can tighten up at the other end of the pitch. And obviously after that first game of 1-0, it did look promising. And the big one for me, I remember, was the Leeds away Carabao Cup game, which really impressed me. And it almost felt we had this kind of good arrogance about us, that we were happy to take ourselves as one of the favourites for the season. And I remember it was the first time I've seen Michael Carrick shift something out of possession and in possession. And I foolishly thought that might have been him learning from previous seasons and adapting with different formations and things, which obviously we found out not to be the case across the rest of the games. But yeah, at the beginning of the season, things did look good.
It did. You're absolutely right. So with them in mind, I mean, obviously you said there, the team had goals in it. We were starting to look at what were your expectations. I'll start with you, Jacob. What were your expectations for the season? What did you think? This is where we should be at the end of the season.
I thought we had to get in the playoffs, and I was hoping we'd be around fourth place, really. And I kind of looked at, I knew Burnley would be pretty strong. You knew Leeds would be pretty strong. I thought Wilder would have them in the playoffs, but apart from them three, I thought there's no reason why Boro shouldn't be up with them.
No, I completely agree. I mean, just before I come to you, Dally, obviously John did put the question out to people to reply to. We said Danny Beardmore to finish in the playoffs, Chris Lane top 6, Craig Wilkinson playoff spot, Steve _Borough. That's your surname. That's a great surname. Playoffs. Every single reply you got was playoffs. Were you in the same sort of camp, Dally?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I said right at the beginning of the season it was going to be a hard season. It's a double-ended one, really, because it kind of got ridiculed for it, but because people said, "Oh no, it's the easiest league to get out of," and as it happens, it was our own shortcomings that have done us. You look at the points that the teams have been relegated on. It was in the 40s, so it just tells you everything that you need to know about the league. Personally, though, I think Jacob's right. That night at Leeds away, Jesus, I mean, you come away from that, you've absolutely turned over Leeds away from home. Brilliant performance, brilliant away and brilliant away day. And you think, I remember being stood there on that warm summer's evening, really proud of the team, thinking it's going to be a good season, this one. Your team, the likes of Morris, picking into gear. Dijksteel had a worldie. Bergzorb played well, and you think, yeah, this is it's a cup game. You don't necessarily always play your full squad team, your full strength team. We've got it. We could do something this season, and 8 months later, you look at what's happened, and it's a crying shame. But I thought definitely playoffs.
Well, that's it. I mean, you look at we just brought the team up that played against Leeds that night. I mean, so we did make some changes that night. We brought in Dan Barlasser, we brought Alex Gilbert in as well. I think Bergzorb made his first start for the team. Colburn was in the team as well. So we made the changes. It wasn't exactly like we'd gone full strength to go there and try and do a job, but we went there and absolutely demolished them. There was no points that night, apart from maybe the first few minutes where I know, was it Junior Firpo had a really good chance, sprint saved at the front post. Apart from that, they didn't really have anything about them, Leeds. And I thought, is that because Leeds were so bad or because Boro were so good? But I mean, obviously, we found out 8 months later because they had an off night, unfortunately. But,
you look at the start of the season. You looked at the teams that came down: Leeds, Sheffield United. No, sorry, it wasn't Leeds. It was Burnley, Sheffield United. Luton, was that right? Who came down? So Burnley and Sheffield United have got the parachute payment, as have Luton. But obviously Burnley went with Scott Parker, who's got out of this league, but at that stage twice before. He's just going to shut up shop and he's going to drag them up. You look at Sheffield United, Chris Wilder. You knew they'd be there or thereabouts. You've got Leeds, who before we're up, and we're going to invest. It was a hard league, personally, I thought. But then, I mean, obviously Luton dropped right off and absolutely bombed out. But like I say, in August, it was looking good, But we say it was looking good after Leeds. Obviously, we'll go into it. How many games after that did we come away from saying we're going to wallop a team at some point? There were so many games we walked away from. You're looking at the back end of August, you're looking at September, October, and you're thinking it's going to click, And then when it gets to 10 games and we haven't given anyone a pasting, and we're losing games 1-0. You look at Derby away. You look at was it Portsmouth at home we drew 2 each?
Yeah, had 31 shots that day. Yeah.
Dieng and Matt Clark decide to have a WWF wrestling match at the edge of the box.
I know.
Little things like that, and you could see the cracks early on in the season, which have led to where we are now.
Well, that's it. And I mean, despite all of the little cracks there, you still felt, like you said, we come out games and go, you know what, one game, everything will click on that pitch, everything will go right, and we'll absolutely demolish someone. I mean, personally, I don't know what you think, Jacob. The first time I really thought it's actually happening, we're actually going to watch it, was Norwich away on that Sunday afternoon. We were 3-1 up. We had a penalty. And I thought, if we go 4-1 up here, this team will absolutely fall to bits, and we will get 5 or 6 here. Unfortunately, we know what obviously happened. Conway missed. We drew 3-3. But I say before that, we just kept saying it, but we didn't really put it into action, did we?
No, it was. Yeah, I think that's why the frustration is so high this season, because even the beginning of the season where we draw a game or we'd get beaten a game, the level of performance was always quite reasonable. We always come away thinking, you know what, we're not too far away. And then again, as we're going to mention, skip forward 6-7 months, even when we were winning games, the performances were a lot worse than we were losing them at the beginning of the season. So yeah, that Norwich game again, you came away from that thinking we can be so good, but then again it was the thing of we can't manage a game. Even at 3-1, you miss a penalty. Well, you're still 2 goals ahead with 25 minutes to play. Can we go 5 at the back and just shut up shop? But again, there wasn't much changes. The subs were a little bit strange, and then we found ourselves 3-3 and clinging on at the end. So again, it as Dali was saying, it showed cracks, and it showed that our game management hadn't really improved and didn't show any signs of improving.
Well, that's it. I mean, I remember walking out of that game so frustrated. I mean, ironically, I was stood in the stands. Conway missed the penalty, and I looked to one of my mates I was stood with, and I said to him, if you were sat at home right now, you know exactly where you're going to put your fiver. You know exactly where you're going to put it, because we all saw what was coming, because they scored, I think it was 5 minutes after the penalty miss, and they just piled the pressure on. And we capitulated. We absolutely buckled under the pressure, and it was the first time I looked and I thought, we haven't handled that really well at all. It's always been a case up until that point we've had to come back, from behind in games. This was a game where we were fully in control, and then the first bit of pressure hit us. The girl went in for 3-2. I think it was Borja Sainz that scored. I could be wrong. And all of a sudden, we just looked rocky. We looked all over the shop. Dieng lost all of his composure. But I just felt, Dally, that, like you said, this was the first signs that maybe we're not exactly what we think we are.
I think Jacob, he touches on it so well, and I'll come back to this answer later on as well. But in-game management has cost us so much this season. I know the question will come later on. Are we Carrick in? Are we Carrick out? And I argue with myself all the time about it. I really wanted to work for him, but his in-game management and his stubbornness is fundamentally as good as where we are. You talk about Norwich there. We were winning that game. In-game management. Tony Pulis to live in daylight out of it for 10 minutes, just kill the game. We never do the dirty stuff. We never change it, do the dirty stuff. Play horrible for 5-10 minutes as in, and I mean horrible as in pumping it long, just keep, wait for set pieces, defend. The art of defending in this club. I mean, if you think back, it's 10 years. Is it 10 years this month that we went to Wembley with Karanka? So if you think we had for a good 6-7 years, teams that were based on solid defences under Karanka, under Pulis, and a team that was, I keep thinking back to, I think it was under Tony Pulis, where the team almost rugby style scrummed on the line to keep the ball out, and it meant defend. The art of defending in this team is non-existent, and there should be times when we're 3-1 up and we miss a penalty. Right, we know the pressure's coming on. We need to sit back. We need to change the formation, just to kill the game. Then you look at Sheffield Wednesday, Boxing Day. You know, you're 3 up at half time, thinking, like, this couldn't go any better, and then we just hit self destruct. But again, at 3-1, you can see the whole momentum of the game has changed. Instead of changing it there and nullifying Sheffield Wednesday, we carry on the way that we play. Gets to 3-2, still no change. 3-3, your Boxing Day's ruined. You know, there are so many in-game decisions that have completely killed us.
Well, that's it. I mean, if you remember Boxing Day, you and Josh both looked at me, didn't you, at 3-1 and went, "There's only one way this is heading."
Yeah, I mean,
I backed it, and I'm not going to say I backed it. I knew it was coming.
We told you. I'm hopeless at tech and stuff. So I said to you, get it backed, get on the app and get it backed. And it came in, and it came when that third goal went in. We all just looked at each other, and it was, you shake your head laughing because you could see it coming.
Yeah, you could. That's the thing, and that goes back to me comment where I said at Norwich when we went to 3-2. I thought there's only one result here. We all knew what was coming. I mean, you touched there about 10 years ago we were going to Wembley with Aitor Kranker's team. Solid defence. Never barely changed. And there's been a few people saying, well, that's not the problem. That's not what gets you up. Look at Burnley. I think Burnley can see, was it 16 goals all season in the league? They absolutely, a bit of housery out this league.
We've got one goalkeeper that conceded that many, and we had 4 goalkeepers all season.
Exactly. I mean, I'm looking at a run of games, and we can see 14 goals in that. So, Sharon said it perfectly. Champagne lifestyle on a lemonade budget. That's exactly right, isn't it? That's what we try to do. We try to play the fantastic football, but in a way, to be honest, I'm going to disagree with it because look at the money we spent. We spent some money this season. We spent a good whack of money. If you include the January transfer window as well. I know we gained a lot from Latte Laf going, was it 25 million euros or something like that? With all the add-ons and things like that. But we still spent, a few million on Aidan Morris. We spent 6 million on Morgan Whittaker. There's players there we spent money on.
A couple of the player who couldn't take anyone on. Hamilton.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. What's happened to him? I mean, you can see what's happened to him. Even Stockport don't play him now. That says everything, doesn't it? So it shows how up and down this recruitment process is. Some are at absolute success. You look at Morgan Rogers now; he's linked with a £100 million move to Liverpool now. I mean, if that comes in, happy days. We've got 25% selling on that. Buzzing. That'll do. But and then you've got on the other hand of stuff, Sammy Silvera. I mean, Jesus. These players can't even get League One teams. That's where we are. How much, Jacob, I'll start with you. How much, obviously, a lot of people are saying it's not all on Carrick. How much do you put towards the recruitment team? Recruitment team have always said, they've always been open and transparent. We put every signing past Carrick. We always say, do you want him or not? How much do you have to then look at him and go, well, why are you even looking at that player in the first place?
I'll never say no blame because, from top to bottom of the club, if the club fails on their ambition to go in the playoffs, then, it's on everybody as a collective. But I don't know. To be honest, I don't massively blame the recruitment team this season. I think they've got players Michael Carrick wanted. I don't think, apparently Giles and Edmondson, Michael Carrick wanted them. And to be honest, Giles hadn't really played for a while. That was probably more done on sentiment than anything. I think Edmondson's awful. And I don't think he was a good sign at all. And then again, I look at Whittaker, who's flat to deceive. But again, the club have certainly given some serious money to get that one done. So in terms of backing from the club, I can't argue with it, and I'm sure Michael Carrick was happy with the signing of Whitaker for that much money. So again, I just look at it and think I think the manager had enough to get top six. To simplify what I'm trying to say, yes, we could have done better in some areas. Yes, why did we let Matt Clark go and not really sign a replacement centre back? Because we could all see where we were short. But again, if you'd think if the manager had almost, if you were Carrick and you'd went to Scott and you were begging, please don't sell Clark, even though we might make a couple of million now and he's out of contract, we really do need a centre back, till the end of the season. So I don't know. I think like you say, Steve, I think most of it will be signed off by Carrick. And you've got to question his judgment as well as Kieran Scott's at times. So they're all partly to blame, but I still think there was enough in that team to go in the playoffs.
Well, you just answered my question there, so I'll ask you, Dally, the same question. Ultimately we did fail. I mean, I'll come back to the major one that perhaps was the killing factor in January. But, John did ask, was this squad ultimately good enough for the top six? What's your thoughts, yes or no?
Yeah, I mean, prediction at the beginning of the season was top six. And I think I looked at that squad and you think, obviously, Dean had a season here already. Ayling, in all fairness, I know people have slated him this season, but at the end of last season, he had a solid finish. I remember being away at QPR, and he was putting crosses into the box. Some of the balls he was putting in were brilliant. So you think, okay, brilliant. Edmondson, I thought when we signed him at first, he seemed to get fans seemed to warm to him at first. We'd kept Alder Clark, who single-handedly kept our defence together for a string of games, being the only defender the season before. And I think he was probably the best defender at the club at the beginning of last season, who was most comfortable playing out from the back. And I think that's fundamentally, I'll come on to it in a second. I think the way we played doesn't suit some of our players. Where Vandenberger was highly thought of, Fry, and you looked, we'd done a bit of business at left back. We hadn't heard much of Borges, but we brought him in. He was, I'll tell you what, he was pawny in to start with. Let's be honest with it. He wasn't pretty at all to watch. It took him until at least March, when it was him and Howson at the back to look a player. Then you look at we brought Morris in. I'd never seen Morris play. Not gonna lie, but the reputation he had was quite exciting. Then we brought Hamilton in. We've all seen the one goal he scored for Man City in the Champions League. You think, okay, there's got to be a player he would pay a couple £1 million for, and then you sign Dork, and that one, the Dork one was the one that really got me, excited. I thought we've got a player here. I'm not going to claim I've watched every under-21 Liverpool game, and I've watched through the youths, but the little clips and snippets and the bits I was reading on him, excited me. And then the Conway transfer, obviously we pulled that through, and we brought Bergzorg in as well. And I thought we had a good squad. We built on top of, we kept Howson, we had Hackney, we kept hold of Laff, which was huge. That squad there was good enough for top six.
Yeah, no, I can't disagree with you. To be quite honest, I really can't. Sharon's in the comments straight away saying we're all on glue, which is lovely, which is quite polite for her, to be fair. So thank you. But I didn't have any complaints with the squad that we had. We had enough firepower. We had players at the back that could do the job. I know Edmondson turned out, he wasn't great when he came back on a permanent, but he made them 3 hours from Norwich home quite enjoyable. I say, trying to make a chant out of his name, and we just spent 3 hours chanting the other way. That was quite fun. But I thought we had enough. Like you said, there was the top two, which were clear for me. Burnley and Leeds. I thought they'd be over a 46-game season. I thought they'd be clear. But apart from that, I thought the league was wide open. I thought there were 6, 7 or 8 teams that could go in there and say we've got a shout here. But the key moments for me was January. January was so huge, so huge, and I say that because we all knew Laf was going. Every one of us knew he was going. It was just a matter of time. It was obvious. If the players wanted to go out in August and he's somehow told, stay put, I'm staying now. January, we had to be ready to get someone in to fill his boots. So the inevitable did happen. We're obviously made aware, weren't we, in the first couple of weeks? It was going to happen. The bit I can't understand, if this is true, Carrick chose Iheanacho. He went for a safe.
Yeah, but no, I was quite excited by the thought of Iheanacho. At the beginning, I'll be honest with you, I saw the name and I thought, do you know what? Yeah. Don't get me wrong, I've never followed his career, I've never man-marked his career, but, from the games that I've seen him in, I thought, yeah, brilliant. But the Iheanacho that we got was a very, 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 very unfit Iheanacho. Like, it's like me rocking up and having a game, and I haven't kicked the ball since our charity game last June. Like, I think his whole interview, like, I said the other week, if you watched his interview when he first came, I think from the first 30 seconds, that was when I kind of raised an eyebrow and thought, well, I hope he puts as much effort in he puts more effort in on the pitch than he does his interview, because he didn't look like he looked like he wanted to be anywhere else, but yeah.
Yeah.
But it was Carrick's decision. I think the January transfer window has got, obviously, it's the most difficult to do business in. Prices are inflated. Everyone's looking to do business. In hindsight, for me, you bring Josh Coburn back.
Yeah.
If you can't find anyone in hindsight, but hindsight's, as I say, is a wonderful thing. But I think letting Laf go, I don't care how childish he wants to be. You say to him, all you've got to do is stay till the summer. You stay here till the summer. If we get to the Premier League, we backdate your money, and we'll pay you a good wage. If not, you're free to go to Premier League club, and we'll let you go.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I was the same as you. When the actual side, I saw the name and I thought, yeah, you know what? He's a goal scorer. He was an unbelievable goal scorer, especially when he was at Manchester City, when he was at Leicester. He scored goals, big goals as well, not just goals in 6-2 wins and whatever. He scored goals in semi-finals, in key league games, in finals. He did the business. Unfortunately, when you look back and you think in your head, well, actually, that was 5 years ago. He's a completely different player now, and unfortunately, we saw a completely different player. It was so sad and frustrating to see, because the fans did turn them really badly. I think that was simple. I think part of that, though, was because we all expected a replacement for Laf. When you look back, everybody just wanted that replacement. We didn't get it. But funny, I mean, you just mentioned there about Colburn coming back. That's the first time I've heard anyone say that. I've thought about it, and I thought, well, I don't know if he'd want to come back. He seemed perfectly happy where he was at Millwall, and he was doing the business. He was doing well. But yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan. Well, Dally, I'm a big fan of Colburn. I love the kid. I think he's brilliant. I think he'll be a great striker in the future. But I think that was the key moment, though. I really do. I mean, I'll bring you in with this, Jacob. What's your thoughts on all this?
I think both can be true in the sense of, yes, Carrick picked Iheanacho, but even when I'd seen that we were linked with Iheanacho, I was thinking experienced. Played an FA Cup final, played in some Champions League games, Europa League games, etc. And you're thinking he should be half decent in the dressing room. Should hopefully get us 5 goals, because that's all he needed to do. We didn't need 15 from him, and that's where I look at to try and simplify it. Is we got Whittaker for 6 or 7 million. He got 1 assist and 0 goals in the second half of the season, and Iheanacho got 1 goal in 16 games, and 2 or 3 assists. I can't remember. So the return we got off those 2 signings in terms of wage and transfer fee is appalling. And I think again, like I'm quite critical of Michael Carrick, but sod tactics for a minute. If that's the return we're getting from 40 grand a week or whatever Iheanacho's on by the club, and £7 million for Whittaker, who we've signed from a team that he knows was going down. He's been given an opportunity at a bigger club, and that's the return we get. So I think it's really disappointing in terms of on the players that. And yes, in hindsight, we can say Michael Carrick was ridiculous to pick Iheanacho, but we don't know what the list was like, do we? We don't know what the list was like. And in terms of who's below him, yes, there might have been someone to bring in on a permanent, and if that was an option, fine. But if I'd seen Iheanacho on the list myself, I'd have been tempted.
I think I've never seen them. The two players are the most. I've never seen players who need confidence as much as them two. Like who completely lack it. I mean, Iheanacho. You think back to the Oxford game, that just before half time where he rattles the bar when he goes on the goalkeeper, and you think he's getting dragged at half time. If you're a manager, you're dragging him. And he obviously Carrick. That's what we would have done, but Carrick wouldn't. Carrick waits till the 71st minute. So he comes out, he scores, and then for 20 minutes, he was the best player on the pitch. And that's all that we got. And apart from a couple of assists, that's what we got from him. And Whittaker, well, I mean, I've got to still convince myself that if you look at him one week scoring against Brentford for Plymouth in the FA Cup, and the confidence that was oozing through him, and then as he's left Plymouth, their managers threw him under the bus, and it's completely crippled him. Yeah, I know he was getting pelters on socials, and he had to do his little statement, and he had to do his interview with Sky Sports. And there was we never saw that player who scored that goal at Brentford.
No, he didn't. And you could, to be fair, when you watch the interview on Sky Sports, you could see, how bothered he was by it all. He was clearly upset by it. People just took one side of the story and just went, "That's how it happened." He's a rat. He's this. He's that. He just wanted to come out and say, "Well, that's not what happened at all. We had a conversation. It was all agreed." And then the manager's come out and said something completely different. Obviously, we don't know what side's true. We're not really bothered. But that's what's happened. And it's like you said, the confidence just completely disappeared from him. He looks a completely different player from the one I was sat at. Because I was sat here in January going, if you want someone to come in, go get him. Go and get Morgan Whittaker. He'll do the job. And he should have done. He absolutely should have done. He's proven at this level he can do the job. I mean, how many good games did he have against us? He used to rip us to bits every time. Well, yeah, no. I mean, I highlighted the Latte-Laugh decision to be one of the bit, but the one decision we all forget about, Dally, is not decision. What happened was Ben Doak. Losing Ben Doak to injury as early as we did crippled our pace, our fear factor. We just lost everything from that moment. We went from having everything going forward to being a bit lethargic and a bit slow.
The way teams set up, they always doubled up on him. And it was the fact how late in the window it was that obviously, they've obviously scrambled round and they pulled, Ilan Jr. in, who took a couple of weeks to settle in, and then I thought, look, and then he ended up playing. He ended up playing at left back, and after Luton away seemed to pick up pace at left back, which is ironic because we brought him in to replace Doak, and he ended up replacing Giles. So yeah, it was disappointing, and you'd hope that we could go back to Liverpool and use that as leverage, I suppose. Like, look, obviously, we paid X amount for him. We've only got him for half a season. If you got either another one coming off the conveyor belt who you want us to give game time to, or it'd never happen because there's too much money in the game, can we have him back for another season? That's never going to happen. He's destined for the Premier League. If he doesn't stay at Liverpool, he'll end up at a Palace or a someone like someone along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I'd probably still pose the question. I'd still say, he's had, you know, a broken season with us. He played for us, got injured, came back, and then that was his done for the season. I'd still probably say he probably does need another year.
But you're probably looking
Maybe
at what teams will probably say, well, we'll take him on loan when he's in the Premier League, get him game time there.
Yeah.
Stock will rise there.
Yeah, that's the only thing, isn't it? And that's probably the most disappointing thing, that we didn't get the most out of Bendo, because there were some games we saw. I mean, he was a bit like Hillen Jr. It took him a little bit of time to get going, but once he got going, dear me, he used to absolutely terrify left backs and right backs, because even when he swapped wings, you thought this kid's unplayable at times, and I think that was the most frustrating bit, because we didn't get to see that past January, and you thought we've actually brought a striker in the actual where he probably wanted to stand in the middle of the box and say, "Give me the ball, just get the ball into me," and Doak probably would have been that player just to slice inside or outside of his fullback and play the ball in the box. He might have actually helped him, but I don't know. So with that being said, obviously the last question that Mr. Donovan's asked: what was the most disappointing thing about the Boro this season? Obviously, people are going to say the thing that's cropped up most is the lack of desire and fight. And I'll start with you, Jacob, on this one. I can't disagree with that, because there has been times I've been stood, whether it be the top of the North Stand or whichever away end I've appeared in. I'm just screaming, show some fight, show something that we're showing you in the stands. Why can't you show us it back?
Yeah, I mean, there could be so many reasons argued by people that would be difficult to disagree with. But yeah, I think that almost the fight and the passion and the will of the club this season has just felt so flat, like on and off the pitch. It's been like an apathetic season, really. And I think, again, it stems from Michael Carrick's, too laid back, too calm, almost Mr. Nice Guy, and it's turned in a bad way. And I think on the pitch he has an inability to get the team up for any game. Even when we get beat, you haven't seen many games this season where you think, bloody hell, we've really, really, put the tackles in there. Put your foot in where it might hurt, put your head in there. You just don't see it with this Boro team. And again, to get out the championship or get in the playoffs, at some point you're going to have to show some balls and a bit of character, and this team just lacks fight, lacks character. So yeah, I think that has disappointed me as well. It's just been flat. We've almost been waiting for a spark to get behind, and it just hasn't came, or just hasn't happened.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, just before I ask you, Dally, I mean, Ian's popped up on socials, obviously, as we go out on Facebook Live. He said these players we brought in are okay in a winning side. We said, I think it was a couple of months ago, we described Morgan Whittaker as a luxury player. He's all right. He's all right in a team when you're 2-0 up. Would you say that about a few of our players? If we're actually in control of the game, we're 2-0 up, that's probably when they're probably going to get something out of them.
Yeah. You can add Azaz to that list. You can add, probably say Bergzorg.
Yeah.
To be fair, you could go. It's the weakest team we've ever had. I look back at it and I try to think I think back to this Gordon Strachan. That's when football was at its lowest for me under Strachan. That's when I really felt I was starting to fall out with it. But I look at that team and we had a Barry Robson in that team. I'd love a Barry Robson in this team. He wanted it. It just doesn't feel like there's anyone in this team who wants it. And then when we finished, was it top of the Fair Play League? Goes back to what I was saying earlier on, where just throw a tackle in, break play up, go long ball, do a bit of the dark arts. Missing Ayling for quite a lot of the season. I know his legs were appearing to go at times, and I think tactically, there was a way of managing that when his legs were going on 70 minutes, then bring him off. But he plays the dark cards brilliantly. If you watched him the season before, he's got the absolute housery about him.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. The amount of yellow cards he got when he was taking his time on a throw in, and he was just bouncing the ball about and things like that. No, but I suppose a bit like I remember the time when I saw the moment George Friends wasn't quite the same was when Zaha absolutely ripped him to shreds up at Crystal Palace.
He used to start not run.
Yeah, and you could see him as a nodding donkey trying to run and chase him, and he just got nowhere near him. That moment came against Sunderland at home when Enzo Lafay let the ball run past him, went through Ayling's legs, and he just sprinted round him. And I thought, you know what? I mean, fair enough. Enzo Lafay is.
Yeah, but
that was the moment I thought he hasn't got the legs anymore. He's completely gone.
Him. That's again the in-game management. We could see when that was happening.
Yeah.
Didn't protect him. He didn't protect the team.
No, I completely agree. And that's what, unfortunately, that's where it comes down to Michael Carrick, doesn't it? That's where a lot of fans, there is an argument, who do you look at, the players or the manager? And there's an argument for both. They're both to blame. The players weren't good enough, and the management that was provided wasn't good enough. I said last week, I was stood there in the second half, and I'm just looking to the touchline, and I'm seeing our manager with his hands in his pockets. And that is not me saying I want him up and down, screaming, shouting, booting things all over the shop. But Frank Lampard is managing his team at 1-0 up, and he's on the edge of the touchline. He's encouraging his players. He's giving them a bit of a G up, and I couldn't see that from Carrick. The first bit I saw was from Grant Ledbetter again, because he did the same against Norwich. I think against Norwich, he actually stood in his chair and he was screaming at him when you go forward. He did the same at Coventry, and I thought, why is our manager not doing that? Why is our manager reverting to writing on a notepad?
His backroom staff they've got to be stronger. It's all right standing on your chair against Norwich.
Yeah.
West Stand, shouting, but get in his ear. I know you can only have one in at a time, but what's the fourth official going to do if you go over just for a couple of seconds and talk to him? Get the message across. The 2 week as a, and this is where I conflict myself with. I'm conflicting myself with Carrick because it's not been good enough, and we've walked away from so many games this season. We've done them long miles home on that bus from away games, and he's done it again. We were weak. We were tactically inept. I always have a quick couple of seconds with Jacob, and we just go, do you reckon? It's always get him out, yeah, and then I sit down and mull it over and I go, there's got to be something there. Over the last couple of years, under Carrick, we have watched some of the best football I've seen for a long time, attacking wise. However, we hit it's the third season now, and we've gone backwards. But he's the longest serving manager in the league, and it's bizarre. Been here 3 years, and the bit where I'm conflicting is I hate in modern football. One of the things I hate is the chop and change of managers all the time.
Same.
You never see them given the chance to thrive, and I think giving him a chance to thrive actually helps us in the future going forward when we do go to appoint managers, because we can go to the better managers and say, you'll get time here. But he didn't. He never had a backroom staff when he came in.
Well, that's it. That's a bit that bothered me as well. I was with you on that. I think we spoke about it, didn't we, when he first joined? We were like, why is he not? You look at every manager that joins a football club. We're not saying they all come with 6 or 7 or 8 staff behind them, stood going, this is my staff. Not like American football wise, so they're all stood behind him going, this is all my staff. He didn't even have an assistant in mind until he sat down and went, I've chose Woodgate. Well, why?
I almost feel like we had to convince him to take the job. If you think to how long it took him to come in, and then at Wigan away, when Leo took us, it was it's Carrick, and then when he came in, there wasn't anyone with him. And when you think back to Boro managers, and you think, Robbo had Viv Anderson, you think McLaren had Bill Bezic, and who ended up at Arsenal, Steve Round.
Steve Round.
Yeah, and then you go through and you can go through them and you go, well, Carranca, he came in with Leo and there was a couple of the Spanish lads. Tony Pulis took his team, Warnock, Ronnie Jessup, and you go through it, and then you've got Carrick's just rocked up at Darlington train station with a backpack.
That's how it looks, isn't it? Like you said, all the managers that have, preceded him. Wilder had Alan Neil, Warnock had Ronnie Jessup and Kevin Blackwell, Tony Pulis had Dave Kemp. They all had the number 2 set. They all said, "I'm not joining without my team." We didn't seem to have that, and it was all of a sudden it was like, "Well, we can give you Woodgate if you want Woodgate." Like you said, it took a few weeks for him to say yes to the job, and I thought, if you look in real terms, in real life, if someone offered us a job and it took us 3 weeks to answer, do you really think they'd be still sat there going, "Yeah, actually, we'll take him now"? No chance. Absolutely no chance. I'm not saying we should have moved on because, Carrick gave us some unbelievable memories, them couple of seasons, even that game at Preston, his first season, last game of the season. I'll never forget we just got beat 4-1 and I'm watching half of the Boro away end in a park slide tackling each other because there's a football that's being kicked about that they've nicked from somewhere. That's the kind of, you think that's the lively spirit that we had, and you compare that to when we all walked out of Coventry. I've never known pain. Like, it was horrible. It was horrible walking out of there. People were like, "Yeah, but you expected it." It still doesn't make it nice.
Do you reckon he stays?
Jacob, I'll let you answer that first.
I think, I think he will. I think there'd have been something out by now if he wasn't. Well, as many people who watch this and yourselves will know, I hope he is sacked, and I hope we have a new manager. But no, I think he'll stay. And again, going back to the backroom thing is, I think fair enough at the beginning, but I don't believe over 3 seasons if he'd went after season 2 and said, "Look, I went with it at first, and I really do think if we get another body in, a bit more experience on the backroom staff, I don't think the club would have said no, because they've backed him players wise overall in the 3 years. So I think if he was unhappy and raised it, it would have been sorted for him over 3 seasons. And actually, people forget he brought his brother in, so they've used the funds, and he's picked his brother, who, by the looks of it, is also underqualified. All that backroom staff is people who are happy to be there. They don't want to step on anyone's toes. Ledbitter's first job, he's lucky to be in the Championship just because he was a good player. He's now the coach. Woodgate, failed manager, horrendous defensively when he was the manager. Craver was a good defender, obviously, when he played. He's just happy to be back in the fold. Or they're probably still paying off his wages so he can come and work instead. And then, Graham Carrick, Michael Carrick's brother. I mean, it's laughable, really. I mean, there is not a Championship quality backroom staff at all.
There you go. I mean, don't ever send your CV to Jacob. He'll absolutely rip it to shreds by the looks of it. Wow. Next time, don't sit on the fence. But he's absolutely right. You look at that. It all comes down to the backroom staff for me. A lot of people do blame Michael Carrick for what's happened, and he is the forefront of that team. He is. He's the one that's stood and you see him speaking to his staff at games, various moments, etc. But he's the one that's he'll always say, "I'll back up my lads behind me."
He will.
Without that being reshuffling, I can't see how we go forward. I really can't.
But the bit that's so frustrating is at the end of every at the end of every interview he gives after a defeat, we must learn. We must learn, and he's got to learn. I think he'll stay. I think he'd have gone by now.
The club's going through that review, isn't it? A thorough review, as they call it. I don't know how long that's going to last. I mean, you'll know how long it lasts because that's when we'll probably speak again in our podcast. We'll put something out when that review's done. to obviously react to what's happened. But for me, surely you've got to bring all 5 of them in, all 5 of your coaches, and sit them down and go, a bit like Alan Sugar. You tell me why I should keep you. You know what I mean? Like, what have you brought to this? You know, how do we move forward with you 5 sat there? And there's not going to be many sat there going, no, I think we'll be all right. I think because he keeps talking about next season, Carrick. I mean, look what he said about Whittaker. He'll be all right next season. We didn't need him next season. We needed him this season. You know, a couple of goals would have been the one. But there's a lot of people in the comments. They're all saying the coaching setup needs a reshuffle, and I can't disagree with them. But if I put that question to you, then lads, I'll start with you, Dally. If you are going to look at bringing someone in, and you let him have his free reign of choice, you know who he knows in the game. He knows a lot of people. You know, he's won everything in club football. That man. You know, who would you like to see alongside him? Because I still feel we've not moved any further forward since Aaron Danks left. Aaron Danks, for me, was his voice, and he's just completely lost that since.
I mean, look, I'm not. Don't know every coach out there, but you look at his connections and you look at club connections. One thing I like about Middlesbrough, we're owned by a local man. We like to keep things in the northeast. I think if you look at Steve McLaren, he must still live up this way. I know he's in Jamaica with the international team, but how many games do they play? Yeah, 10, 12 games a year. Then you look at he played with Nicky Butt, or connection at Man United, who's come all the way from kids. There must be a connection there. You look at Phelan, Pat Phelan's brother off Corrie. He's kicking about somewhere. How's he ended up at Plymouth, but hasn't come here? It blew my mind.
No, you're absolutely fine. I mean, someone's just come in the comment. Brush has come in the comments saying, "Don't get hooked up on Danks." But he was, for me, he was the one that actually made Carrick put some changes in the squad. He was the one, but I just feel he needs a bit of something behind him. That's why I said at the end of the season, go and get Tony Mowbray, not to manage the team. Give Carrick some help. Mocha gets what we're about. We saw him, Daddy, when he was at the it was at the Eston Event Centre, wasn't he? Was it November? And the way he talked about football, you thought he hasn't lost an inch, he hasn't lost a step in all the time he's been out. I just feel a bit of a different approach. I'm not saying I don't like Michael Carrick, because we've sat down with him. He's a nice guy. He's chilled. He's very chilled. He'd be laid down if he wasn't. That's how chilled he is, and that's how easygoing he is. I'm gutted how it's happened. I'm gutted. Like, it shouldn't have happened this way, but unfortunately it has. But I mean, Liam's just put in the comments there, he thinks the review is going for so long because Scott's talking to potential replacements. So let's go down that route. So tomorrow he goes. Jacob, start with you because you screened for it all season. So I'm going to put you on the spot. Who'd you bring in?
My number 1 would be Steve Cooper. Again, everyone will go boo, hiss. My number 2 would be Gary O'Neill. I know it wouldn't be popular. And number 3 would be Rob Edwards.
Okay. There you go. I mean, Dally's just spent the whole time shaking his head there.
Gary O'Neill, I used to really like him as a Boro player. And then obviously he's done that interview and deliberately took the yellow card, and
I know, but could you not get? I mean, I get. Look, you've obviously seen him play. I didn't see him play, and I've seen the interview. But would you not get over that? Considering, like, could people not get over that? And if you start winning games, I probably think people couldn't. I mean, if he started bad, it could turn quite quickly. But he's obviously a capable manager. He did very well with the Bournemouth side, and I don't think he'd have went down with Wolves this season. Yeah, that Victor Pereira's ended up doing a much better job than he was doing, but they weren't a million miles away.
I don't know. I think it has left a bit of a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. I think if he did go, I think you're right in Steve Cooper. I think realistically, looking at the names and who's available, it's probably him who you'd probably turn to. But I think the last name you gave there, I think if he does go, I think it's teed up for him. I think it's Rob Edwards. We'll bring another PE teacher in. Knows Kieran Scott, but my concerns there are, yeah, he got Luton up, but he's been part of the management team that have got them relegated as well.
Yeah.
And that's my concern.
Yeah, you look at Rob Edwards, I mean, like, people say, yeah, it was Matt Bloomfield that took them down, but I feel when I watched Luton in the last few games, he gave them an absolute fighting chance of staying up. He did a brilliant job with them when he left Wickham to go there. So, yeah.
I think Rob Edwards would be an interesting one to see him with a bit of money, because he's always been like, Luton was still the underdog, and they did put up a good fight in the Premier League, in a lot of games, and I think when they've came down, I don't think they backed him much. I don't think, you look at the players Luton brought in, they weren't really Luton Town players. They went away from, try to go away from that mould, and it's backfired on them. And of course, I'm not saying he's had no input on that, but I don't know. I think Rob Edwards with a bit of money could surprise a few people.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not disagreeing with the names you're saying. I say they've all got, credible shouts to get the job. I say Ibrahim Tanner said the name I want, and I said it when we got beat there on Easter Monday. Danny Rowe, go and get him. I say that's the one. I think he's the one. Unfortunately, I do think he's going to get the Southampton job. I think that's going to prize him away from us. But
it's like £4 million to get him out of it.
Wow, I don't know. I think we might have dropped the way he's been talking about the team. But
if you asked me in January for Iheanacho and Whittaker, I'd have said yeah.
That's true. Yeah, no, I fully get that. Just before I ask you both for your moment of the season, because might as well end on a high. We can't just keep talking a bit on the down. Obviously, in a couple of weeks, Essen Events Centre, obviously we mentioned a few minutes ago with Mogger, they've got another night on. Boro, they've called it their Boro night. They've got George Friend and Tony McMahon. Me and you are going out with Ali. John's going as well. Keep an eye out on the socials. There is going to be 2 tickets that we're going to give away. So keep an eye out on that. We'll put it on Facebook as well as X or Twitter, whatever it's been called these days. So yeah, 2 tickets to go that night as well. It should be a cracking night. I think Jeff Winters is hosting it again. It will be, won't it? So yeah, it'll be a cracking night. It'll be brilliant. Come say hi to us. We're not just a closed group. We let anybody come on. Look at Jacob. He comes on and talks about Carrick out every week, so we don't cut him off. But no, it's going to be a great night. Keep an eye on the socials. Say if you haven't got a ticket, get yourself one. They're only, how much are they? 20 quid? Tickets? They're not much. So, get yourself a ticket. Get yourself in there. It's really good night. I say we went in November. It was cracking. It was so good. So yeah, another one to get in touch with. So, Tally, I'll start with you. Could be football related. Could be the team. Could be personal. This season, moment of the season.
Final whistle at Coventry. No, that's something you might have to come back to me. Leeds away were brilliant in the cup.
Right. Jacob, come to you.
Yeah, that's the only game where I've been fully impressed, to be honest. Yeah, Leeds away.
Yeah, I mean, it was the only game I was impressed, but I'm going to go to Oxford. Watching the score 6 at Oxford. Yes, Oxford weren't great. They weren't great at all. And after 70 minutes, I think they just went, "I'll bugger it. Can't be bothered anymore." And we just filled our boots. But being part of that away end and thinking, was it the first team since, was it 1955 or something like that, had scored 6 away from home for the Boro? That was quite good to be part of. Quite enjoyed that. Yeah, I really did enjoy that. Class away trip. Want to tick off the list as well. I've never been, so obviously we've got more coming this season, haven't we? Well, next season, sorry. Wrexham will be an absolute scramble to get a ticket for, because I can't imagine they're going to give more than that little corner away for away fans. So that's going to be fun. Who did you mention you wanted out of the playoffs, Dally?
Leighton Orient.
Yeah, Leighton Orient.
Charlie.
Give me them. I wouldn't mind Wickham, you know.
I think all of them. I think even Stockport as well. I think
Stockport would be a great way to.
I think any of them. Look forward to any of them coming up. Be a good away.
Exactly. And I'll ask one last question. The teams that are in the playoffs, it feels sick. Who's the team you want out of here? Start with you, Dally.
Asking who you want your missus to cheat with, isn't it? It's horrible. You've got the Mackhams. Enough said. You've got Bristol City who've tried to force a rivalry with us.
Oh, don't get that.
We're on a horrible ground, horrible to watch the telly on the telly as well. You know, when the camera's on top of the stand, and then you've got Coventry. I hate Coventry. Honestly, just getting that. I'm sick of seeing them.
Get them gone.
But then I'm always convinced every time we play them, we're going to wallop them, just to get one over on them. And then you've got Chris Wilder. I hope. Good luck, Bristol.
Yeah, I mean, they've got 2 hopes, Bob Hope and no hope. You know, they really are struggling in that second leg. But
I think if someone win it, it's a bad year, isn't it?
Terrific, yeah. Them going up, Newcastle winning the trophy, Leeds winning the league.
Yeah.
Horrendous. Jacob, come to you.
Again, it's obviously difficult to pick one. I'll say Sheffield United because they're the third team and the best team out of the bunch, so they deserve to go.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, what did they finish on? Was it 92, 93 points?
Yeah, and that's a good points tally.
Yeah, you're unlucky if you don't go with that amount of points. I mean, you can say that about Burnley. How they didn't win the league on 100 points. I mean, that's baffling, absolutely baffling. But they didn't. So, yeah, get rid of Sheffield United. I'm not a big fan of Bramall Lane anyway. It's a shed. Yeah, I mean, there's some good away days coming down, isn't there? Ipswich away is always a class away day. Proper enjoy going to the Railway Tavern next to the river.
Weekend.
Yeah. No, bring on. When do the fixtures come out? Is it 26th of June? 25 weeks away, 6 weeks away. So, yeah, we'll be back around then, if not before, for this, end of season review that the club have had. We'll give you a bit of reaction on that. But
I have a new badge by then.
Yes. What do you want though? Do you want a round badge or similar sort of crest to what we've got?
That's what they're going with at the minute, isn't it? That's what it sounds as though they're going to go. It's just going to be the last badge, but with 1876.
Yeah, a bit like the one. Yeah, that John said, well, it's going to be that, isn't it? Which is fair enough. Yeah, I'm actually going to get that tattooed on my arm. So there you go, more ink on me. So yeah, you won't have seen the round badge, with you, Jacob? You've always been familiar with the.
Yeah, I don't think so. Well, I think I've seen like a photo of it. Yeah, I've seen the circular one, but I haven't seen it like on something really.
They're dead old now.
I know. I just thought then. I was like, I bet Jacob hasn't seen us playing with a round crest on our shirt.
During the Iraqi War.
Say again.
During the Iraqi War.
Dear God, don't. We really are old, me and you.
Yeah.
But on that note, we'll leave it there. Gentlemen, thank you very much for popping on. And thank you for a great season. On and off the pitches. We've had some laughs, haven't we?
It was crap. It was crap.
Some of the stuff off the pitch was class.
Oh, yeah. The penalty, well, let's be honest.
Getting that bin. That bin at the top of the North Stand was brilliant last home game because no one cared. We were never winning that day because we've been playing till now. We still wouldn't have scored. So, but no, thank you so much for the good season. We'll make it even better next year. Bring on the fixtures coming out. And to all you people that have listened, liked, shared, commented, subscribed, made us grow even bigger this season. Thank you so much. I mean, Ian's just put it nicely there to finish it. No matter how bad it is, how poor it is, we're always going to follow the Boro. We're always going to keep going. We're always going to be there, stood in some horrible away end on a Tuesday night somewhere that we can't even imagine being, knowing we're going to get home at 3 o'clock in the morning. But you know what? You wouldn't have it anyway. So, arrivederci. Be seeing you. Keep an eye on the socials. Yeah. Toodaloo. Enjoy your summer.